Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on storytelling itself. Every story you've ever loved, every book, every movie, every epic tale. Well, it turns out they're all built from the ground up following this surprisingly universal blueprint. So, what are stories really made of? I mean, on the surface, it seems simple enough, right? You got characters, a setting, a plot. But the real answer? Oh, it goes so much deeper. It actually starts with this huge, infinite, kind of chaotic pool of raw material that exists way before a single word ever gets written down. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at that very blueprint. We'll walk through the key stages of building a story, and you'll see exactly how a storyteller takes all that chaos and turns it into a compelling, unforgettable narrative. All right, let's dive in. All right, part one. From chaos to story, the act of selection. Now, this is so cool. The very first step in building a story isn't actually an act of creation. It's an act of selection. A storyteller doesn't just invent things out of thin air. Nope. They choose what matters from this endless sea of possibility. So the folks who study stories for a living, they're called narratologists. They have a word for all this raw material, happenings. And what are happenings? Well, it's everything. Literally everything that could possibly exist in a story's world. I mean, from a character's birth, to what they ate for breakfast 20 years ago, to, a meteor that could have hit their house but didn't. It's just infinite. So here's where it gets really important. The storyteller, they act like a filter. They have to sift through all that chaos of happenings and pick out only the stuff that's actually relevant. In that process, that's what transforms the chaos into a chronological sequence. That's the story. It's the very first step from just infinite possibility to what the old school rhetoric folks called ordo naturalis, basically the natural order of events. Okay, so you've got your events selected. You have your story, but now the real artistry kicks in. Because it's not just about what happened, right? It's about how you present it. And that brings us to our second part, the art of arrangement. And this is where we get into this classic idea from a group called the Russian formalists. They talked about the fabula versus the sujet. Now, the fabula, that's the story. It's just the raw, chronological sequence of events. A happened, then B, then C. Simple. But the sujet, that's the narrative. That's the artistic, clever way those events are arranged for the audience. A perfect example? Think of a movie like Pulp Fiction. The story is just a bunch of crime events that happen in order. But the narrative? Whoa, it scrambles that timeline all over the place, and that's what creates all the suspense and surprise and makes it such a unique experience. And this right here is a perfect illustration of that power. Look at the story. Character is born, faces a challenge, finds a solution. Super simple, right? Linear. But look at the narrative. We start right in the middle of the action. The character is facing a challenge. Boom. Instant intrigue. Then we get a flashback, maybe to their birth, to explain why this challenge is so important. That builds emotional weight. And then we come back to the present as they find the solution. See? The exact same events, just rearranged, create a totally different and way more engaging experience for us. Okay, so let's recap. We've got our selected events, we've arranged them in this really artistic way, but there's another really crucial filter we have to think about. Who is actually telling us all this? And that's section 3, the narrator's filter. Believe me, the choice of narrator is one of the most powerful tools in the whole blueprint. Yeah, don't just think of the narrator as a voice. Think of them as a lens, or even better, a prism. Because every single piece of information we get, it's bent, it's refracted through their consciousness. They're the ones who decide what we get to see, what we're allowed to know, and maybe most importantly, how we're supposed to feel about all of it. And this really peels back the hidden layers of communication in pretty much any story. At the very top, you've got the actual author talking to us, the actual reader. But inside the story, they create a fictional narrator to do the talking. I mean, think about The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald didn't tell us the story himself. He created Nick Carraway to be our filter, to shape our view of Gatsby's whole world. And then that narrator tells us what the characters are saying and thinking. So each level adds a whole new filter, It really shapes the info we end up getting. All right, so we've got our story. It's selected, it's arranged, it's being told by a specific narrator. But what makes any of it actually interesting? Like, what turns just a simple change into something dramatic and memorable? What makes it an event? And that's our next section, the science of drama. This quote from the great Anton Chekhov just nails it. He says, quote, "The failure to marry is far more eventful than the expected marriage would have been." And that's it. That's the key. A true event in a story is all about violating what we expect. A wedding? Yeah, okay, that's the plan. But a bride leaving the groom at the altar? Whoa, now that is an event. It totally breaks the pattern and makes us lean in and ask, wait, what? Why? And of course, the narratologists have broken this down. They've identified 5 key things that make a moment truly eventful. First, it has to be relevant. You know, a car crash down the street is just noise. But if that car crash involves our main character, that's an event. Second, it has to be unpredictable. The hero saving the day is kind of the norm, right? But the hero failing? That's an event. The change also has to be persistent and irreversible. A character getting a new job can be undone, but a character suddenly dying? That changes everything, forever. And finally, it has to be non-iterative, meaning it can't happen over and over. The first time a dragon shows up, it's this mind-blowing, world-shaking event. By the 10th time, yeah, it's just another Tuesday. So here we are. We've gone from pure chaos to a selected story. We've arranged that story into a narrative. We've filtered it all through a narrator, and we've packed it with dramatic events. But the blueprint, it has one last, absolutely crucial piece that brings the whole thing to life. And that final component? It's you. It's us, the audience. See, a story isn't just some static object sitting on a page or a screen. Its meaning is actively built inside your mind as you connect all the dots and fill in the gaps. The storyteller, they lay out the blueprint, but you're the one who actually builds the house. So think about it. The next time you watch a movie or get totally lost in a book, try to see the blueprint. Look for the choices they made, the act of selection. Look for the art of arrangement, how they played with time. Pay attention to the narrator's prism and spot those moments of true, game-changing eventfulness. Because really, every great story isn't just a story. It's a world, carefully and deliberately constructed, just for you.